In this video, I'll be talking about the truth behind the notion that there's a devil-like entity that personifies evil, which is a notion that's central to many modern-day religions. You might be surprised to learn that this is a far cry from what the actual scriptures of most major faiths say. Misinterpretations and the cherry-picking of passages have led to a huge distortion of the underlying reality. I'll also be explaining how this ties into the subjects of the previous videos I've made. The links to these videos are in the description underneath this one. Now, Christian preachers often use the idea of a singular king of hell punishing people to encourage sinners to repent and turn to God. The problem here is that in the Bible, Satan isn't a being, it's a description. The word Satan is a generic Hebrew noun meaning adversary, and is used in the Bible to refer to multiple different figures. Some of them are human, and some of them are spiritual entities. When used to refer to people, it identifies them as enemies of the Israelites. This accounts for 6 of the 10 references to them in the Old Testament. For example, in Samuel 19, when David's nephew attempts to persuade him to murder Shimei, a Benjaminite who spoke out against David but who David chose to forgive, the nephew is referred to in the original Hebrew text as a Satan. When the word Satan is used to refer to spiritual entities, it's made clear that they're under the control of God. For example, in the book of Job, it's used to describe a being that places obstacles in front of Job with God's permission to test his faith. Although Satan's clearly work against the interests of man in this scenario, they cannot be described as entirely evil, as they're still doing God's bidding. Numerous other entities that modern day Christians believe are synonymous with Satan are also mentioned in the Bible. However, they are clearly not the same being as one another, as evidenced by differing descriptions of them. Examples include the multi-headed sea serpent Leviathan, Beelzebub, a derogatory word for the Levantine deity Baal, who is described in the Bible as resembling a bull or a ram, and Lucifer, who had a form similar to that of an angel. They also do not appear to be entirely evil. For example, Leviathan was kept on a leash by God, which suggests subservience and deference. In Islam, Satans are known as shaitans. God sends them to be enemies to misbelievers to incite them against each other and to test them. This is very similar to the biblical interpretation of them. Although there's no direct equivalent to Satan's in Buddhist scriptures, Buddhist missionaries are said to have tamed troublesome spirits worshipped by demon deity cults in Southeast Asia and brought them under some form of control. This is congruent with the idea of Satan's being dangerous to man, but ultimately collaborating with God and testing us as opposed to being unambiguously evil. The idea of a binary between good and evil in the Abrahamic faiths came at some point between 500 BC and 70 AD, when Judaism was heavily influenced by the misinterpretation of the ancient religion of Zoroastrianism. In this religion, a spirit known as Angra Mainyu is said to represent destruction. This idea was taken on by many Jews who replaced the idea of Satans with a singular Satan. However, this is scripturally inaccurate, as Angra Mainyu is one of a number of spirits known as devas that are troublesome in nature. So what's the significance of this? The idea that there is no absolute evil and that challenging behaviours are distributed throughout various entities suggests that life is by no means black and white. Although there are temptations, they should not be viewed as simply destructive. They test us and ultimately make us stronger. And is there any scientific evidence for dangerous spirits to complement the anecdotal accounts in religious literature? Well, surprisingly, there actually are. Numerous studies of the experiences of those pronounced clinically dead that have been published in reputable peer-reviewed academic journals have revealed that the individuals in question later reported seeing demons during periods at which their brains would have been incapable of thought according to conventional science. These include a 6-year-old boy who recounted meeting a devil after dying during a car accident. The being was described as having rotten putrid flesh and a feeling of unease emanating from him. The boy later recounted things that family members had said to him, despite the fact that he would have had no way of knowing this because he was clinically dead at the time. The previous videos on this channel outline my reasoning for believing that the universe was created by an ancient tulpa or thought form thinking both itself and the universe into existence. They posit that we were created from its thoughts and are therefore sub-elements of it, just as the characters in a dream are both aspects of the mind of the dreamer and distinct entities with their own personalities. This sounds pretty out there, but is backed up by evidence that is presented in the other two videos. How does the notion of multiple devil-like figures that work against our interests in some scenarios, but not entirely evil, tie into this? Well, this is where the idea that they work at the behest of a deity becomes relevant. Satans are the creating being's way of testing itself. They're a means of challenging us, and so while we should be wary of them, they're actually nothing to be afraid of. Visions of these entities, whether in life or the space between lives, are merely a way of us reminding ourselves of the darkness that lies inside all of us, and urging us to pray to the essence of the Tulpa within us to give us the strength to overcome. By doing this, we're praying to ourselves and willing ourselves to succeed. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. In the next one, I'll be speaking about my own near-death experience and what it taught me about the cosmos, creation, and why we're here. It'll be a personal anecdotal account that provides additional context to what I've shared with you so far. I hope you continue to join me on this journey.